What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today is Thanksgiving here in the US. So to all of my American friends and viewers of the channel, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day and you're spending it with friends and family. And for this special Thanksgiving Day beer review, I will be reviewing a beer from Clown Shoes, and they're headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. And this is their Gordo, and this is the 2020 vintage. So they're calling this one an Imperial Pumpkin Stout that is brewed with spices and aged in Whistle Pig rye whiskey barrels. It comes in at 10.5% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed. Time of review, this can is approximately 2 years and 4 months old. So I want to give a huge thanks and shout out to a very good friend of mine and viewer of the channel, Steven, for hooking me up with this one. So big thanks to him. In the description box, I'll post a link to the beer haul video I did that contains all the goodies he hooked me up with. And when I saw this one, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to save that one for Thanksgiving because it's a big beer and I want to get into it on a special day. So here we are. So like I said, this is Imperial Pumpkin Stout. They say brewed with spices, aged in Whistle Pig rye whiskey barrels. On the side, they have a little spiel, which we'll read a little bit more information. It says, we told Gordo, who I believe is the guy on the skateboard here, says about the evil pumpkins guarding the abandoned swimming pool, but he just couldn't resist hopping the fence and dropping in. He just never listens. Don't get it twisted. He's shredding in there, but those pumpkins are none too pleased. Hope you've got an exit strategy ready, Gordo. Gordo is our Imperial Pumpkin Stout brewed with a variety of spices and pumpkin puree to provide authentic seasonal spice on top of a rich and flavorful malt profile. We teamed up with our friends over at Whistle Pig to age this 2020 vintage in their 10-year rye whiskey barrels, adding a unique and complex barrel flavor. So they don't say anything about pumpkin puree here, you know, right in the front. It says it in here. So pumpkin spices, pumpkin puree. It's a big Imperial Pumpkin Stout. And yeah, aged in 10-year rye whiskey barrels. And I found this hilarious. Who doesn't want a 10.5% barrel-aged Imperial Pumpkin Stout in a 19.2 fluid ounce stovepipe can? I mean, everybody wants that, right? Anyway, this is a bit older. We'll see how the spice is held up. We'll see how everything is held up in this one. I'm really excited about it, though. You know, a lot of the pumpkin stouts I've had have been delicious. A lot of the barrel-aged pumpkin stouts have been really good, and this seems like right in my wheelhouse, although I've never had one, I don't think, aged to this degree. So we'll do something like that, not trying to get crazy. I can't believe this comes in a 19.2 fluid ounce can. The stovepipe can, it's like, Jesus. No one needs that much pumpkin beer, okay? Anyway, so yeah, that poured out like more of a dark brown in the glass. Yeah, there's a little bit of like a light brown here. On camera, it's gonna look pitch black. Has about a half finger of a really creamy brown colored head, really big alcohol legs. Not quite sheets, but the legs are there. Yeah, that plays the role of a Imperial Pumpkin Stout aged in rye whiskey barrels. Oh, holy shit. The rye whiskey is there. It has that peppery, like rye kind of just spiciness. There's vanilla, there's oak. The barrel's dominating on the first couple whiffs. Okay, now cinnamon's coming out, nutmeg, clove, ginger. Allspice? So I just basically named every single pumpkin spice. But I'm picking up on everything. The spices are still here. Almost 2.5 years old. The spice is still here. Underneath it, there's a sweet, like dark chocolate, like a Hershey's dark chocolate. There's a roasted malt character. There's a little bit of coffee. Caramel and toffee, molasses. Very deep and rich and very complex, like malt profile, this one. Maybe a touch of a dark fruit. Like a plum, maybe a black cherry. Touch of like licorice too, or anise. Whew. This smells like I was gonna compare it to like boozy pumpkin pie if, you know, that existed, right? But it's just more than that. The only thing I don't think I'm really getting out of this is like the crust of a pumpkin pie. I'm getting all of the pumpkin pie filling. I'm getting the whipped cream. It's like you're drinking a rye whiskey next to a piece of pumpkin pie, but maybe the pumpkin pie has like a chocolate drizzle on it or something. Yeah, not much more to say about it. It's super complex. It's making my mouth water. And if I'm being honest with you, this smells absolutely delicious. So can't wait to get into it. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again, Stephen. Happy Thanksgiving. It's relatively tame, considering what I just said about the aroma and the fact that it's 10.5% and it's barrel aged. It's very tame. It's super smooth. Like, it's just really easy to drink. Buying this, it's a bit thin. Shout out to Paul over at PA Brew News. It's a bit thin. This is like higher side of medium body, lower side of full body, kind of right in that realm. I like to see this like firmly into the lower side of full body, maybe medium full. It's a little bit thin. The mouthfeel, decent carbonation still. But like I said, it has a nice smoothness to it, a little bit of like a creamy sensation, but it has like a good moderate carbonation. So I think the mouthfeel is fine. I wish this has a little bit thicker because it's a little bit thin, probably from the barrel aging, but it just has a little, maybe the base beer wasn't all that, thick to begin with, so probably thinned it out a little bit more. The taste though, really complex. It's giving me Prairie's basic Rebecca vibes. I give that beer a 5 out of 5. This is nowhere near that. But it's giving me that kind of feeling just because it is a barrel-aged Imperial Pumpkin Stout like that beer was. But I think this is a little bit more subdued, not as deep and rich and complex with the flavors, even though the aroma was. Like, the aroma did not carry over in terms of the complexity whatsoever. Like, there were a ton of things I was talking about, all the different aromas and aromatics I was getting, and then I get into the taste, and it's like, not everything's there. So the one thing I will say about this one is right now, in the taste anyway, the spices have died out a little bit. You're getting the base Imperial Stout. I'm getting a real nice roasted character right at the front of the palate. There's a little bit of coffee roast. There's darker, like 50% cacao bar vibes, baker's chocolate, maybe like cocoa powder. It just has more of a bittering chocolate edge to it, the front of the palate. The sweetness from the base beer, I'm getting more like a caramel and a toffee, touch of molasses. That's pretty much carrying the sweetness as far as the malt characters are concerned. As it passes through, midway through the palate, I'm hit with cinnamon mostly, and then maybe a little bit of like ginger. Those are the two that really stick out to me in the taste. I can't really discern the rest of them. Also, when the spices hit, that's when the barrel kicks in. The oak presence isn't that big. There's a little bit of like an oak tannin dryness that makes this like semi-dry. Touch of vanilla. The rye whiskey, I feel like the peppery kind of rye feeling I was getting in the nose, really not hitting here. I wouldn't tell you if this was Asian rye whiskey barrels. If I was doing this blind, I would probably just say generic bourbon or whiskey barrels. So that's kind of a bummer that it didn't carry over. Finishes mildly bitter, but again, that semi-dry kind of feeling on the back is now bumping up. It's more like semi to almost full-on dry. It's really helping this beer. It's not super sweet at the front of the palate or anything, but it's giving it more of a balance. I think, if anything, this leans a little bit more dry than anything. I'd go dry, sweet, bitter in that order of like, what's leading the way. I will say they've hid the alcohol quite a bit. Like, when I took that first sip or two, I said, very smooth. There's, a little bit of a warming in the chest here, but it's 10.5%. Nothing on the palate, no astringency. I can't tell you this is a huge 10.5%. If I was doing this blind, I guess maybe like 9. I think the aging probably helped out the ABV a little bit in terms of feeling it, but it also died down the spices. And a lot of times when beer is aged, they can go a couple different ways. They can turn into something really amazing or kind of lose its luster, so to speak. And I think this one is kind of just, it's really good, but the nose set me up for disappointment because that nose was fucking fantastic. Like, I was so looking forward to that first sip because that nose was just reminding me again of the Prairie Basic Rebecca, where I was about to lose my shit. And I get to the taste and it's just like, man, this is really easy and smooth and nice, but like the nose was way more over the top in terms of complexities, and just the aromatics were like just, gripping my entire face piece. Like it was just like up in there, and the nostrils and all my senses were like, yo, this is awesome. And then I take a sip and I'm like, oh, this is solid, pretty good. So a little bit of a bummer from that perspective, but if we're being honest, I still think they did a pretty good job, and this has held up quite well, because when you talk about pumpkin beers and the spices usually die out or change, the fact that it's barrel aged, a lot of things can go sideways. This beer didn't really go sideways. I didn't have it fresh, but what I'm saying is it hasn't turned into something completely just utterly disgusting. It's a really good beer, but the nose set me up for disappointment. Here we are. So I am going to give Clown Shoes their Gordo 2020 vintage. I gotta give my thumbnail, and there's still a lot of beer in here, so I just gotta see where the front is, because a lot of times I do this, I'm like, oh, look, yeah, it's probably still gonna be offset. I don't give a shit. Anyway, I'm gonna give this a, gotta be honest, right? I'll give this a high 4 out of 5. I'll go 4.05. I can't go any higher than that. I gotta be honest with you. The nose to me was screaming 4.5, 4.75 range all day. And that's just honest to God truth. The nose is substantially better, so be it. Price and availability, I have no idea. We barely get Clown Shoe stuff here anymore. Once in a great while, I'll see like Space Cake. I think they're whatever their 12 beers of Christmas, that shows up. Like, we don't get a lot of just regular offerings or even any of the rotations. I mean, I've never seen this ever in my area, certainly not in the stovepipe can. So if anybody out there, Steven, or anybody else, could tell me what you paid for this can and the availability of Clown Shoes in and around your neck of the woods, I'd love to hear it, because like I said, we just don't get their stuff anymore. It seems ever since, I don't remember how far back that Harpoon, so Harpoon has a parent company, and the parent company owns Harpoon. They own UFO beer as well, because Harpoon used to put out the UFO beer. Now it's kind of like a separate company, I think. They also, I think, own like a cidery, but they also bought Clown Shoes, because if you look on the side of the can here, it says out of Boston, Massachusetts, and Windsor, Vermont. That's where Harpoon and UFO beer is out of. Ever since they kind of took over, we just don't see as much Clown Shoes. Back in like 2012, 13, 14, Clown Shoes everywhere. When they were in Ipswich, Massachusetts, I believe is where they were. Not anymore. So not much more to say about this. I do think it hid the alcohol quite well. One of the big redeeming qualities of this one is I should be able to fit. I don't know if I'll just be honest with you. I don't know if I'm going to drink that entire can. Just being honest with you. That's a lot of a pumpkin beer. And on top of it, it's a lot of a just solid, good pumpkin beer. It's not like a 4.5 out of 5 pumpkin beer, because I would drink the entire thing if it was. So huge thanks to Steven for this beer, though. And once again, happy Thanksgiving, everybody out there. Hopefully you guys had a great day. Not much more to say. Just going to shut it down. So appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. Till the next one. Cheers.